All right, so I'm Dr. Eric Greenberg, and it is March 9th, 2021, at least in the United States, and I'm here with my student, whose name, as we said, we have altered to protect his identity and his safety. But we're going to call him Aung Khant for the moment, and so he's a student of mine at Loyola Marymount University, but he is a Myanmar national. He's currently living in Myanmar during the coronavirus pandemic, and this is a follow up to the podcast that we had done a couple of weeks ago, where he was kind enough to give me an interview and talk about what is going on in Myanmar. So, just to remind the viewers, there is there's a coup that had taken place um, uh, a couple of months ago, where the military junta of Myanmar took over and displaced and arrested quite a number of the legitimately elected officials, such as Aung San Suu Kyi, the state counselor, as well as a lot of members of her cabinet. They have put these people under arrest, and there's been um, very organized, concerted, but peaceful protests among the vast majority of the population, who just do not want this military junta to be in power. They do not want this coup to to be solidified, and they want their elected officials back. They want their democracy back. But for those of you who've been following what's going on in the news, the violence that has been perpetrated by the military junta, by the military government against the general population is getting worse and worse, and more people are being killed. And so I have my young friend Aung here to talk a little bit about what's going on, because he's in the thick of it. He's seeing what's going on. He's been taking part in the peaceful protests, but as he told me, that it's more and more difficult at this point, um, because there's more and more violence against the general population. So I want to thank Aung for being here. And so tell me, please, just in your own words, what's been going on. Of course, we've talked about this before, but for the sake of the viewers, just repeat a little bit what we've talked about and bring us up to date.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the protests have took a much more violent turn. This
Hmm.
is because the junta and the military has basically blocked off a lot of access to embassies and a lot of public places where they know the where where they know the whole world will be watching, or where they know they cannot use any violence because we have just been peacefully protesting.
Hmm.
So ever since basically the 28th of February,
Okay.
things took a much darker turn where over 50 people were gunned down in one day, which was
Mm.
our bloodiest day uh, in our country in this revolution. And this was a really sad day when one of the girls in Mandalay called Angel, uh, where she became kind of like a symbol and now our revolutionary hero, a martyr,
Mm.
was really like how to say made us feel that we need to win this revolution. So ever since then, the protests have turned into basically kind of like a cat and mouse situation, where um, where where the protesters set up barricades and has a lot of their homemade Roman type of shields
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and a lot of makeshift protective gear in case of any rubber bullets, live ammunition, or even tear gas.
Mm.
Yeah, the problem, the greater problem right now is that um, media is press and media is also getting really targeted, where where at the ground situation, the press journalists actually have to blend in with the protesters. They cannot wear the helmet where it says press because they actually get targeted. They
Oh.
get arbitrarily detained, and people even who is shooting, like people who is taking a video from their apartment, will get hit with a catapult or will uh, get shot with a rubber bullet. So what they're trying to do is just old tactics, censoring the media too. And just yesterday, five main media outlets were how do you say were put on warrant and were made illegal.
Mm-hmm.
So it is just transparent censorship. Yeah. But
Right.
however, ever since that day of killing, that actually, how I would say, boosted the global attention. Where I've never seen Myanmar actually being covered that much on the global news than after
Mm.
that day. So what we believe is that now that they have um, the junta has turned into a different type of tactic, where they're trying to incite fear and anxiety instead of just plainly killing people.
Mm.
Where now we see a lot of brutal beatings. I believe you have seen the beating of three healthcare workers, which is actually pretty sad. And
Yeah.
we have seen a lot of now nightly arrests, and now which we would actually say kidnappings. And now two members of the NLD, the elected party, now two members have been they were arrested at night, and the next morning, uh, only their bodies returned. So they
Wow.
basically died in custody from probably brutal beating and torture. So
Ish.
now they're trying to incite that type of anxiety and fear into us. And now every other night, like in even in my city, in every township, flashbangs would go off. Um, like how does it, ammunition would go off just to, keep fear into the people.
Mm.
And above all that, there's still the 1 to 9 a.m. Internet curfew, which keeps us really like, which even incites more anxiety.
Right. Yeah. And so at this point, you've got very limited time to do your schoolwork, to do any protesting, to be on the internet. It's all under curfew. Um, so remind us of your schedule. You from what I recall, the curfew, or rather the internet curfew ends what time of the morning? 8 in the morning, was it, or
9 a.m. in the morning.
9 a.m.? Okay, and goes till about 1 a.m., I think.
Yeah, till 1 a.m.
Yeah. And now your class with me is
It's
somewhere about
12
midnight your time, right?
yes, midnight to 1 exactly, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
you
yeah, your class has been the only one I've been actually been being able to attend.
wow.
So it's kind of crazy how even like my right to education was like blatantly stripped off.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
I have a strange question for you, but you're in the middle of something that most of us here in the US have never experienced in our lives. The idea of just this kind of random violence in our streets where any of us could get killed at any time. I mean, even people who have served in the military overseas and have served in combat, that's been in another country. It hasn't been here in the United States, in their homeland, in their towns. Let me ask you, do you fear for your life? Do you think that, you might leave the house at some point and just never come back? Is that on your mind?
I would say if I were to able to um, like quote unquote serve my parents and if I were to actually join a protest, I would say my mindset would be that okay, I might not return.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of these young protesters are actually going with that mindset where it is crazy because how do you say it? Us youth and young people, we don't feel like how do you say it? Losing this revolution is worse than death. Like
Right.
we are not scared of being dead, even death anymore.
Yeah.
And the thing about this is why this is on such our priority is us young people feel that no matter what you're doing right now, your degree, your education, if this junta it will be in power, it won't matter at all. Your degree, your hard work, what you're doing, it we feel as though it won't matter. So
Mm,
that is why, yeah, this is our number one priority.
yeah.
Everything else comes after. Think about this. We're one of the most impoverished nations in the world, where our minimum wage is basically around $2 per day,
Mm,
per day. And now for over a whole month, we haven't worked at all. Everyone has stopped working. Everyone has gone on general strike. Um, Even private banks have been closed for a month, over a month. That is how much people don't care about anything else.
mm,
And but what we believe is that at this time, nobody will go, like nobody will die from starving, since we feel so united and we're already a country that donates, and like we live in a very societal culture where we can guarantee that you don't have rice at your home, you can go and ask your neighbor and they will give you with a smile.
mm.
So that's why we everyone is on strike, nobody is working, and hopefully this will bring an end to the brutality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to add to that fact that where these, I would say, these are the real problems. Like this, how do you say? This is not the first world problem. This is the real problems that are actually still going on in the world. Where
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So just to kind of reiterate and clarify, you're saying that so many of us, particularly here in the US, we're just kind of focused on celebrities and fashion and style, and maybe we stubbed our toe and we think that's a problem. And you're saying
yeah,
that to lose one's democracy, to lose one's
yeah,
freedom, that's the real
freedom. Yeah,
problem.
that's a real
Yeah,
problem. Yes, to
freedom.
lose one's like to lose one's ability to even like pursue your own education, or
Hmm.
not to fear for a life. Those are like the fundamental problems that might be still going on in the world.
Yeah,
Truly, truly.
yeah.
Yeah. But
And
to add on
oh,
that too, now never mind. This might be too controversial. So yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. We'll, we, I'll add on to this later.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I've been very critical of the people who stormed the Capitol in the United States on January 6th. And I try to be as neutral in American politics as possible, but really when it comes to people who are um, essentially following fake news and and creating a problem there where there wasn't one, and pretending that the election actually was won by Donald Trump, and claiming that they have the right to go to our capital and essentially to storm the capital and to create a revolution just so that their candidate can win the election. And of course there's been reports that there were numbers of people who were there storming the Capitol who never even voted in the election. So how do they have the right to complain? And so these people, there were a lot of them who were claiming, oh, this is our 1776, and you may recall that 1776 is the date of our American Revolution, the date that we declared our independence from Great Britain. And so people look at that number as this seminal date, the seminal date that where everybody in America got together. We fought for the common cause of our independence to create a democratic republic called the United States of America. And so people are saying, oh, this is our generation 1776, where we need to fight against a stolen election. And I just, not only do I laugh, but I scoff at that, because that election wasn't stolen. You want to see a stolen election? You look at Myanmar. You look at what's going on there. That's a stolen election. And so I would remind every American who's watching this, I would remind anybody who has a care, who thinks that our nation is a righteous and just nation that believes in democracy. We've got a 1776 going on in Myanmar right now. And these are people who are really struggling for their freedom, for their democracy, for their liberty. And those of us in America, we need to support. our fellows, our brethren and sisters in Myanmar, and support them in their fight to restore their democracy. And what is that going to take? Well, we're going to have to keep writing to our representatives, our senators, our governors, our president and vice president, and remind them to withhold any aid from this illegal military junta government, this coup in Myanmar, and to do everything they can to try to restore the rightful, legitimately elected government. And obviously, Myanmar wasn't a perfect nation beforehand. It isn't a perfect nation now, but it's only going to get back on track if they have a democracy and not a military junta running their government. So I just can't stress it enough to all of any of my viewers, that this is their 1776. We need to support them in that. So I'm just,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Actually,
Um,
the how to say, the American government has been really supportive of us. They were the
mhm,
first ones to impose bilateral sanctions on the
okay.
government. But what what we have now realized is that because they were so isolated already before, these uh, how do you say, the sanctions from America and most of the Western countries don't really affect them.
Mm,
So yeah, things are changing very quick. Even our perception of how we can win this battle. So before, what we did was we really rallied to the Americans, the Japanese, the Australians, and we really pressured UN, you know, please help us, save us. But now, what we're starting to realize is that these monsters of the monsters, the military junta, they actually might not care.
mm,
And what we have realized is also that through UN, because China and Russia can still veto any strong action, we are we are not relying our hopes on there anymore too. So now, what I would say is that in my own personal opinion, like this battle will be only won from within, where
mm,
where one of the longest civil war in the world, a 60-year-old civil war, might actually come to an end right here, right now, and uh, and Myanmar might actually achieve true democracy, where ASEAN, where no country in Southeast Asia has actually had. So yeah, our future, like for us, we feel like if we win this, it is the brightest and like the most shiniest it has ever been, because we have never felt this united. We have never we have, and we will finally be able to abolish the 2008 constitution, which is
mm.
which is the only thing that is probably holding back from our development. And to think that we will get our true democracy and freedom right after this revolution where all the people came together, where now the people of Myanmar are basically fearless. We are we are unarmed civilians fighting against guns. So if we win this battle, our future, we feel as though it has unlimited potential, where yeah, where a fearless group of people are gonna get true democracy.
Yeah, yeah. And so I guess a couple of weeks ago, I was watching. You may have actually sent me this video. It was the Myanmar ambassador to the United Nations. Tell me if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Is it Kyo Mo Tun? I don't know if I'm
Yes,
pronouncing it correctly.
yes, John Moton.
Okay, Kyo Mo Tun, uh, where he was issuing an appeal for help to end the military coup. And I recollect one particular thing he said that really stood out in my mind was he asked for help by any means necessary. And I thought, wow, that's a dramatic statement. When you say by any means necessary, you mean also potentially having UN troops come in and exert military force to try to keep peace. Now, I don't know how
So
many people interpreted that as what he meant, but that's what it can be said to mean,
you
That's
know what is
shocking.
actually even more shocking was that like Ujao Moton was supposed to, so he was currently still the ambassador by the military junta. So he was that day at that council, he was supposed to say what was ordered by the junta, which would be not condemning the coup, saying the situation is internal, blah blah blah. But he broke rank and
Right.
actually stood up for the people, and which might actually be a defining moment, hopefully, in this revolution. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So right now he is seen as a national hero. Where
Mm.
um yeah, and yeah, what is even crazier is that that is true. We we Burmese people feel so hopeless because we don't have any weapons, and we believe that the only reason we are under this military rule is because they have weapons. If we
Mm-hmm.
had weapons, they wouldn't be in power. So now, just last week, there were a lot of posters that were asking for, please UN, please R2P, R2P, which is responsibility to protect,
Mm.
which is finally when you are supposed to send the troops in, maybe UN peacekeepers or things like that. So
That's
we are
interesting.
that hopeless. Yeah.
Right. Right. And of course, a lot of Americans for the last, I don't know, several decades, we've talked about that one of the reasons why in the United States we have a Second Amendment. Of course, this is a really, really hot button issue. This is highly
Yeah.
debated, but a lot of more conservative people will say, well, this is one of the reasons why we have the Second Amendment in the Constitution. The right to keep and bear arms is to
Yep.
prevent the
The
potential of
government
a,
from.
yeah, of a,
Yep.
a tyrannical government from taking over because
Ah,
they need to be afraid of the people. And I have to say, in this one moment, maybe they're
maybe
right. Maybe
true.
that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why
That
we have
was
guns.
yeah, that was what I was about to add before, saying,
Yeah,
oh, maybe that's a little too controversial. But I finally see it now. I finally understand. I never understood. Man, they can just get guns, like like as if it's like Walmart. Now I understand it now. Why, like to the extreme, it makes sense. If the
yeah,
government is being bad, who is gonna like? Yeah, that's true.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The government that fears its people. That's what they say. We want our government to fear our people. That's part of the government having respect for the people and carrying out the will of the people. Now, this is a highly debated issue. It's not an issue that is easy to come to conclusion about, because obviously a lot of people in the United States have lost their lives due to random gun violence or just absolute nut jobs getting their hands on guns. It's not a simple answer. It's not a simple problem, but we're seeing the extreme on the other side, a completely disarmed populace in Myanmar, and the military junta is running roughshod over them, and yet the people of Myanmar are showing the kind of bravery and the kind of um, just in internal fortitude that I think that our ancestors in the United States in the early days of our republic, that those people showed the kind of bravery that our revolutionary government in 1776, the kind of bravery that they showed. And that's why I just want all Americans to remember what's going on in Myanmar, that these are people just as brave, if not braver, than our colonial ancestors, our revolutionary ancestors, 200 and 30 some odd years ago. I'm not going to do the math right now, but you know, however many years ago 1776 was, you know.
Yeah,
But
Myanmar.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Like I would say, our country is like really full of potential, since like even just looking at a geography standpoint, we're in between India and China,
Hmm.
like the mega countries of the world, where even just yeah, even at a geographical standpoint, we are very important and vital, where we have a lot of potential, and we are actually this in the world uh, we actually produce the second most precious stones in the whole world. So, and we actually were the number one supplier in ruby, like that pigeon blood ruby. Those
Oh,
those those type of natural resources come so much from Myanmar, but these were mishandled, these were corrupted, these made the juntas and their cronies billionaires, why the people of Myanmar just lived in poverty. That is why, like, over these 60 years, it really deteriorated our country. Where here the military is not just the military, it is they control the police force too, and they're
Mm-hmm.
also a huge economic powerhouse where they have conglomerates in every sector. Only now, for the first time, Burmese citizens, Myanmar citizens, are looking where their money goes when they buy a product.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also having a social revolution where, like, once these military people, how do you say, they were they were supposed to be treated with respect. Whenever they came into a room, you were supposed to bow to them. But now that has gone out the window, where the public people will spit on them and spat on them if they're seen in public. And now people are boycotting their products, looking if there are any links to what they're buying with to the military, or if they're supporting in any other way.
Mm-hmm.
And a cultural revolution of where, like, the military is a really misogynistic, very, like, right-wing Buddhist nationalistic institution.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, our defense tactic, one of the defense tactic is right now hanging up sarongs, or they're
Mm.
called longjis, where the Burmese military and most Burmese men in our culture, we have this thing called pongkan, which is maybe only secluded to Theravada Buddhism. But we
Mm-hmm.
have this pongkan where, how do you say, men are just born better. We have better thinking. We have better, we have better luck. And if we were to do things like going under a longji or going under a woman's dress, our pongkan would be lowered. Here it is really sad where, even at some 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 pagodas, women are not allowed to step into certain places because of their ponggan. That is how much, like, this misogynistic culture is ingrained in our nation. But now what happened on International Women's Day was all of the men's protester came out of their house with sarongs on their head, literally wrapped around as if it's their hat. So now the women also feel like, oh my god, it is actual, like, there's an actual social and cultural revolution where, like, these old ideas and, like, culture roots might actually also be taken away. That is
Mm.
why we're saying we're very, like, our future looks so bright, where I can finally persuade my parents that Myanmar is not a Buddhist country. You cannot label this as a Buddhist country. We have over 100 ethnic groups. Do you finally understand why we cannot label this as one country or our country? And now they finally accept for the first time things like that. That makes us so, like, giddy for the future, so happy for the future, especially people like me who have seen how, like, the Western culture, how America, how diverse yet accepting they are. Yeah. Because to be honest, in California, I never had a bad experience like that. That included my race or anything. So I would say I'm also really looking forward to the future of our country.
Yeah. Yeah, at least our area of California and the greater Los Angeles area is very diverse. And even people from the majority or hegemonic population, the Anglo or Caucasian people, they're just so used to having people of different ethnicities around them that I think the vast majority of people here in the greater LA area are very tolerant and as non-racist as one could be in a largely racist society. I mean, we can talk about the racist uh, origins and undertones of our society, but the individual people, yeah, we've got a lot of tolerant people here, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that you've had that positive experience here in the past. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I just want to kind of remind the viewers that at least at face value, Myanmar is a majority Buddhist nation and majority Theravada Buddhist nation. And if for people who don't know anything about that, Theravada is the oldest remaining sect of Buddhism. It's older than Mahayana Buddhism, um, and it tends to be thought of as fairly traditional, fairly conservative. There's certain aspects of Theravada Buddhism that are very different than Mahayana Buddhism, but we tend to think of Theravada Buddhism as very peaceful, pacifistic, and yet, as you've described to me, we've got some very radical and extremist leaders in Theravada Buddhism in Myanmar. And when I first learned about that, I was just shocked. I was thinking, this is so un-Buddhist. The kinds of things that I'm hearing from like people like Wiratu, we talked about him, the very
Well,
extremist
felt a
monk.
national
Pardon?
shame for it felt as a national shame for us, like
Mm-hmm.
someone,
Mm-hmm.
a monk, to be doing that. It was
Yeah.
like, yeah, but these are all, the crazy thing is these are all the works of military. These are
Mm,
all the works of trying to divide, because now what they're doing is what they always praise themselves is that, oh, we are defending our country's traditions and values
mm,
and our religion. That is what they poise themselves on and like try to persuade people on their side. And that is
mm,
what their supporters always say. Always these racist, misogynistic slurs. Always like, I don't want my country to be a Muslim country, or this.
right.
I don't want my country to be a Western country, things like that. Like these
Mm,
people shame Aung San Suu Kyi for marrying a Westerner. Like
mm,
that's how nationalistic and like, because we were closed off for 60 years, where 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 the all the military's propaganda was, we're supposed to rely on ourselves, rely on yourself, rely on yourself. Don't call, don't be calling other people your father. You are your own, how do you say, you're supposed to provide for yourself. That was
mm,
so deeply ingrained until I believe our generation, where we have access to the internet, we have access to the whole world, and now things are really changing. Where most of the young people don't think like conservatively at all. Yeah.
right, right. Now, you and I, of course, had that email exchange earlier talking about the role of faith leaders, that the role that they've played or not played. Can we talk about that a little bit for the viewer? I had
Yes.
asked, because everything I do is regarding interfaith. That's my whole profession, is to try to
Mhm.
make peace and build bridges between people of different faiths. And I had suggested to Ang that, hey, what if we were to try to bring together different faith leaders in his area, and therefore the Institute for Religious Tolerance, Peace and Justice, my organization, my nonprofit here based in Los Angeles, which has an international scope. What if we were to try to work with them to see if we could maybe support them doing certain kinds of interreligious dialogue or interreligious activities right in the middle of while they're having the protests? If there's something that we can do that's of an interfaith nature, then maybe I can justify trying to raise funds through our organization to help them. But then, of course, you enlightened me about what's going on. So please share with the viewer what you had said to me about the problems with that.
Yeah. So it seems as though, hmm, like the religious leaders, they're taking a stance of where politics doesn't like matter with religion, sort of type of. Where like, so I'm a Buddhist, so I only know more about what's going on in the Buddhist community. So like a lot of the, how to say, the prominent and very major monks, all they have done is just release a statement condemning the use of force and the coup, where we as people believe that this is no longer politics anymore. This is between good and evil, where they should be more, how do you say, more prominent, more like, yeah, they should be more apparent in their actions.
Yeah.
And but what has also happened is that these, because the military is so ingrained in the Buddhist traditions and superstitions, there have been this very powerful and, how do you say, yeah, very powerful and well-known monk who has apparently even told the military to like, he who has given the advice to military, to the junta, that if you want to change the era, aim for the heads, which actually rhymes in like Burmese. So that rumor has circulated so much where now even we also swear and we put that Buddhist monk's face on the sarong just to disrespect. So
Mm.
there's also a revolution in that sense of religion where even I can, once again, another thing I can finally convince my parents where my mom, a very devout Buddhist, who before used to always tell me, like, it doesn't matter if it's Wirathu or anyone. If he is if he is wearing uh, the saffron robe,
Hmm.
like you have to respect it. That is Buddha's teaching. Like she would always tell me that. But
Mm.
now I can convince her, wait a minute, I don't think so. I don't think like all the doctorates, all the knowledge, it doesn't matter if you're evil, if you're supporting evil in within. So now that type of like culture shift is also happening where like honestly our society used to just blindly follow the monks, blindly donate to the monks. We don't know like what's going on, but we just blindly donate it. But now like we want to know who you are really, you know.
Mm.
So and another problem is that how to say most of the local monks they are really traditional, so they might not even have a laptop to join in on Zoom, or they might not even want to interact with Zoom, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, so
Oh,
things
that's
like that
interesting.
because even monks they're not even supposed to hear any type of music, they're not supposed to listen to music, they're not supposed to look in the mirror. So I mean Zoom would be kind of like a mirror
Mm.
because
That's interesting.
they
It's
might
very
be
traditional.
very traditional, yeah, because
Mm.
one might be caring about their beauty and such. So
Mm.
eliminating of the mirror eliminates that. Yeah, there's actually a lot of traditions.
Mm.
So yeah, that was why I would say there might be some difficulty. Yeah.
Right. By the way, what was the name of the other monk you were talking about, who had said that phrase that if you want to change the era, aim for their heads? Who was that guy?
Oh, like we don't know his name specifically,
Ah,
but he is known as the like Wazzy Bait. Wazzy Bait is like mouth is closed, so he doesn't talk apparently for like 3 months. So in our culture, we only know him as the Wazzy Bait monk, so mouth closed monk. So we're not
oh, that's
sure of,
interesting.
yeah, because
Okay.
we're not sure even if if he's dealing in the evil arts and such. Because
Mm.
yeah, he's it seems as though he's like the junta is his biggest, like how to say, the biggest client or like biggest supporter.
Mm. Very
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and
So,
but
oh, mhm.
I'm sorry, yeah, Cardinal Mambo though has been very prominent in releasing statements asking for international help. Yeah,
That's a
so I would
Catholic
say
cardinal, I assume.
yes, yes, like
Okay.
Pope Francis, his friend or something.
All right. Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's some way we can maybe try to work with the Catholics to try to
Yeah,
amplify his request for support. Um, I don't know. I don't want to give up on the possibility of involving the
yeah,
interfaith community in some way, whether the community in Myanmar or the community outside of Myanmar. Uh, I keep telling people that it's the faith leaders who really have a lot of power in this world. They're the people who are telling the populace what to believe and how to think. And they're not even elected. And so with that that power comes a lot of responsibility to tell people good things to do and the right way to act, rather than somebody like Wazibe or Wiratu who are telling people to be nationalistic, to be extremists, to hate the next door neighbors because they're not of the same ethnicity as you. They're using their power wrong. So the rest of
yeah,
us who are people of conscience, we need to stand up and say, all right, hey, we're the faith leaders, we know what's best, and we're telling you,
yeah,
stop that. That's not okay. We do not support that.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's true, and this might actually be a blessing in disguise, where like finally maybe we have finally realized it is no longer we should no longer like have such conservative values. like because
Hmm.
we were through really open, like really shine a like light to a lot of my age and a lot of maybe like people in their 20s and 30s, like
Hmm.
where they finally like realize, oh my god, there can be extremists in Buddhists too. It is not just like secluded to other religions. There can be extremists in our religion too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm reminded of something. I don't know how much you know about the history of other nations. You and I don't know each other that well. We've only known each other a couple of months at this point. But so I've done a
yeah,
lot of historical research. I've learned a lot about, particularly about the Vietnam War. I was always very interested in that. America's involvement in the Vietnam War, what was going on at the time. And I don't know if you've heard of a Buddhist monk in Vietnam who he literally set himself on fire. It's a very, very famous photo of him.
oh
His name,
yes,
yeah, Quang Duc Dong. And this was part of, uh, I mean, it was a movement of Vietnamese Buddhist monks who were protesting against the predominantly Catholic government of Vietnam at that time. I'm trying to remember whether that was the Nguyen Cao Ki, I think was the name of the president at the time, who was Catholic, and he was favoring the Catholics and he was abusing the Buddhist population. And so the Buddhists were protesting the the improper treatment of Buddhists. And what this one guy did was he went into the public square. I think this was in Saigon, if I recall, and he had his assistants pour gasoline all over him. They lit him on fire, and he just fell into a state of deep meditation, of deep samadhi, and he just literally sat there on fire until he died. He didn't scream, he didn't flinch, he didn't move, and this became a a symbol around the world, a symbol of the kind of I guess you'd say strength or fortuitousness that or fortitude that the Vietnamese Buddhist monks had, where they were willing to give up their lives for social justice, for a cause. And so my point is, where are those Quang Duc Dongs now in Myanmar? Where are the Buddhist monks who are willing to give up their lives for the greater good of humanity, for the greater good of the Myanmar people, willing to give up their lives to say to the junta, the military junta, you're doing something wrong, and I'm going to sacrifice my life to show you that you're doing something wrong. Where is that? They need to stand up and do that. I'm
that's
not
true.
saying
What
that
is
people should be killing themselves, but I'm saying where is that drive? Where is that bravery?
That's what is really disappointing because what's so strange is that in 2007, the monks led the revolution, where
Really?
yeah, where they were gunned down, they were beaten up.
Oh,
But that is why it's really strange to us. Have did they got have like did they think maybe it's not worth it after 2007, or you know that's why it's really strange to us this time,
hmm.
because as I said, like the saffron revolution was actually named the saffron because of the color of the robes the monks wear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So because it was a
Interesting.
monk-led movement. So I've been actually through in my life through two revolutions and a pandemic. So
Yeah.
it's pretty eventful.
When this is all over, you should write a book about it. I
It's
don't
been
know.
pretty eventful.
I'm sorry. Remind me what your major is. Did you say it was marketing? Was it?
Business and
Yeah.
leadership.
Business and
Yeah.
leadership. Well, you're getting a lot of firsthand uh, training in leadership. I mean, you're a leader at this point. You're a leader. You're one of the leaders in this revolution, and you're learning a lot. And I hope at some point, even if you do continue to go into business, that you'll continue to be leading not only the Myanmar people but people around the world in doing the right thing and standing up for justice and freedom and liberty.
Yeah.
And I hope that you write about this in the future. I hope you'll tell people, you'll preserve this for posterity.
Because I do feel like I have a responsibility when, like I said, our nation is so impoverished they earn like $2 per day. When, I'm privileged enough, I'm lucky enough to be born into a family where they can, provide me even American private education. So
Yeah.
I I really do feel like I have a responsibility to my people, where I have seen how other countries' infrastructure, like how their welfare, how their healthcare system, okay, maybe not healthcare system in America,
Mhm.
but healthcare system, public transport. I see all these things, how, how like just being born into a different country like limits your opportunity, you know, where I see that how just being born into America, you can become someone. There's so many ways to be someone. There's so many, like, if you try hard enough, there's so many ways to climb up the ladder. Where just being born in Myanmar, you're in a deadlock just because you're born into this country. That's also what really drives me right now, is that, it really makes me feel sad knowing the other side of the world.
Yeah.
That's why we also say, like, how do you say, be, focus on the third world problems. I would say the first world problems, I mean, they're real, but they're not real to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, so at this point in time, what else could people in the United States or any of the other first world countries, what else can we do to help
Yes.
other than raise awareness? Is there, like, I keep thinking investment. Is there any
Yeah.
local
Yeah.
business that we can invest in? Let me know.
Oh, like, so I would say right now, yes, awareness, we have reached like a point where maybe awareness is good enough. But what we
Okay.
can do right now is fundraise for, because as you know, as I said before, like a lot of government workers are engaging in the civil disobedience movement. So these workers are not getting paid. And think about it, they were only usually being paid what, like at most $100 per month. And
Mm,
some like a portion of these government workers also live in government leased houses, and most of them have been kicked out. Most of them had to, relocate. So right now, I would say is to fundraise for the civil disobedience movement.
mm,
And I would definitely send you some links to, I think there's a lot of GoFundMe pages. There's also a lot of local fundraising, like funding, which
hmm.
might actually, like, how to say, make the process quicker. But I
Right.
believe there's also a lot of international um, fundraisers that is going on. I will send you a link on those. But I would say
Okay.
the focus will be on that, so that we can sustain the civil disobedience movement and cripple the country.
Right. Right. Okay. So, um, are there any other final thoughts that you would want to share with the viewers? And maybe we can do this again. I mean, I'd like to keep getting updates from you from time to time, and hopefully seeing progress.
Mhm.
But are there any? I'm just wondering, are there any short videos that you'd want to show the viewer,
Oh,
um, that show how bad things are? You've shared a couple of them with me, but I don't know if you want to maybe show them really quickly. Is there anything that you think
yeah,
might be
sure.
helpful?
I'll show a video that
Okay.
I sent it to you. Uh, these are some brutal videos where people might be uncomfortable looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the viewers, I stress that these might be triggering videos. Be aware of that. But this is reality.
Just a second. Um, sorry.
You know what? I'm going to pause the recording just for a.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this
So
was,
Aung is going to show us a couple of videos here.
yeah, this was at the start of where the police forces started using violence, where
Mhm.
this used to be a major place for peaceful protest, and where one of the people was gunned down here.
Mm.
You can see how nobody is charging at them, but they're charging at us. yeah. So our protests have kind of turned like that, where it becomes like a cat and mouse situation. And here's another video of them using excessive force.
Mm-hmm.
You can see how like people have to run into some homes, run into streets. And now the next video is the really graphic one.
Okay.
Oh, where is it? Oh, sorry. Sorry, just a sec. Oh, resume again.
Okay.
Yeah. Here you can see how like there are a lot of like volunteer healthcare workers, and they also get indiscriminately targeted and get assaulted like this. This is their brutality.
Oh boy.
So, and this is out in the open. Think about what happened in their how do you say, in their custody.
Right, in custody, yeah. In private, yeah. Wow. That's brutal.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
That is what we have to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Their own
happened.
countrymen.
Yeah, this happened like just 2 nights before. 2 nights before, where this is the city I live in, where you can see a lot of flash bombs going off just to scare people. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a taste of the type of nights I've been having to go through for the last month.
Yeah.
But yeah. So they set up a curfew of 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. like martial law, and then they do whatever they want at night. So yeah, these are armed police and military who's supposed to protect the people, but in turn they are only protecting the junta men online and their group of friends. That is, yeah, that is what happens when people don't have guns. Right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, so maybe we'll use this as you know, a stopping point, and you know, we just ask the viewers to do you know, to give money to raise funds for people who've lost their jobs. And yeah, if you can provide for me any kind of websites or whatever, I'll put that on my social media. And yeah. So I want to thank you, Aung. Thank you for sharing this with us. Thank you for being a you know, an amazing example of somebody who's fighting for not just freedom for your own country, but showing the rest of the world what an unarmed populace can do. I'm just so amazed at what you guys have put together with so little. Just all of those thousands and thousands of identical signs that just show up out of nowhere. That like you said, somebody says, hey, we need signs, and then somebody else comes up with the signs. You know, that's just amazing collaborative thinking and work. Just and I hope the rest of the world learns something from that, that we can stand against tyrants.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for this opportunity where I can have a platform to, you know, tell my international friends where, yeah, these are the
Absolutely.
problems that is happening.
Yeah. All right. So God bless you, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop the recording, and hopefully we'll check back with you sometime soon.
Yep. See you.
Okay.